Welcome back, Vanessa. Thanks so much for joining me again and talking about the remote and virtual employee lifecycle. So just a little refresh. Last time we covered engaging, assessing, bringing people on board. And so now today we're going to cover off how to create the right culture, what the management styles are that best reflect remote and virtual environments, and then looking at professional and capability development within those virtual and remote teams. So welcome back. Thank you.
Thanks.
Cool. So let's hit straight into it. So the management styles for virtual teams and remote workers, what kind of manager or management style is most effective in your experience?
I think there's two parts to it. So firstly, the managers that I've seen work really well, or the management style that I've seen work really well, and on one hand is really somebody who is interested or willing to be interested in who their employee is as like a whole person, versus just who they are at work. You know, when you are at home and you're working, it's hard to, I think it can be hard to kind of switch your professional self on and leave your like personal self at home, because you're literally like not doing that at all. Like you're physically not going anywhere. And so it's hard for me to be like professional Vanessa and then be sitting here in my living room talking to you. So I think a manager who is really interested in who their employee is as a whole person and willing to be open with who they are as a whole person as well is works really well. And then also somebody that is really open and able to take the time to invest in their employees. So that is being, you know, spending 15 minutes at the start of the call, just like shooting the breeze and hearing what's going on. And somebody that, you know, might be willing to jump on a Zoom call for an hour in the afternoon to work through a problem together. So just, really proactive and being interested in who their people are. I think it works really well.
It's really good observation. You know, I guess a lot of us would expect people to be empathetic in this day and age as a leader or as a manager. But being empathetic to the fact that this person actually hasn't disconnected from their home life. They actually still live their home life.
They're still in there.
That's what matters. Okay, cool. And so the other part of that is how much of it depends upon the type of people that you've hired and the management practices. I mean, it sounds like an obvious question, but is there a specific type of person that works well in a virtual or a virtual or a remote environment, as opposed that will work with that management style as opposed to someone else in your experience?
I don't think it's going to be too different to like in an office situation. As a manager, if you have a large team or you have more than a team of two, you probably have to manage those people a little bit differently. And so I wouldn't think it would be too much different to a remote situation. The type of people that are going to struggle in a remote situation are generally people who are just that little bit more extroverted, right? We don't have that additional energy from other people to draw on, as we've all probably experienced over the past, month or so. So how can you, as a manager, knowing that you have people who draw on the energy of others in your team, how can you create those environments for social interaction so that people don't feel completely like their bucket is empty by the end of the day?
And that moves and segues very nicely into that next kind of question, which is around the culture and how you can create culture in a remote working environment where people are separated physically. So what's worked in your experiences or in the conversations that you had with the leaders inside previous businesses?
So I think it's giving people deliberate opportunities to express who they are in a way that's not in-person communication. So maybe that's on Slack, encouraging different channels where different people can talk about different hobbies, like dedicated separate channels for people to talk about different hobbies. Maybe that's getting a kind of a culture, like a culture of lunch and learns going. So maybe over Zoom, where you have different people in the team across, a month or so sharing a particular idea. That could be something that they've worked on like in the workspace, so sharing a particular project, or it could be something, you know, everyone probably wants to talk about their sourdough starter these days, so maybe you have somebody in the team that's maybe you have somebody in the team that's doing that really well, and they want to give a lunch and learn on a sourdough starter, how to, you know, make your own sourdough. So yeah, you know, as we talked about before, a lot of it is deliberate and planned versus accidental. And so how can you deliberately give people those opportunities to express who they are, and also for people to find out who other people in their team are as well, so people can make connections across the team, because I think that's, you know, that's obviously super important as well.
And you know, it sounds like, you know, structured fun,
It's
in
structured,
some way.
planned fun.
And so, you know, are there things that don't work? Are there things that you've experimented with where you're like, well, I'm not going to do that one again? Like, you know, funny hat Fridays, or like, are there things that people just should kind of avoid because they're a bit weird, or because they're cliched?
I mean, I'm probably not going to be suggesting a funny hat Friday anytime soon. Not because I don't believe in it, but I probably think there are more effective ways. I mean, some people get really self-conscious on a video call, you know, so maybe sometimes there are those like, hey, everyone, let's jump on a call on, you know, Monday at 9:30 for all of us to have a coffee. I think some people maybe naturally won't join that.
Sure.
So, but I think it's important not to be discouraged, you know, like when you are, you know, trying your best to create these instances for people to come together, if something doesn't work, well, you can't be just too discouraged about that. You just got to try something new.
Sure.
But I think for a lot of managers and for execs, they can see like a lot of Slack banter and think that people are just like slacking off. I'm using that word in a funny way there, but you can't try and stamp out that social Slack banter when you are in a remote environment, because that is akin to them people having a conversation at the coffee machine. So I think you've got to encourage it.
And it's very well said. You think about how much non-work communication happens in a team that's residing together. Like, why would you do you jump in and go, hey, stop telling them about that recipe, right? So that's perfectly natural for that to happen, and probably should be encouraged, right? It's
absolutely.
Okay, cool.